For the next couple of weeks, I felt like I was constantly tired, but just as I had expected, I was able to listen in on many a dinner conversation at the boarding house during those times. Early on in the month, Miss Maureen said Mr. Madison had eaten his dinners quickly, seemingly absorbed in his thoughts. But now he had grown animated as the number of his dinner companions had grown. Mr. Madison had already chosen a large table in the far corner of the dining area and always seemed to be the one leading the conversation. He would pass his papers around the table, and they would all talk about what he'd written. I couldn't hear all of the conversations as I came in and out of the room with their food and their drinks, but I would always catch portions of them. "The crisis has worsened. We must be successful here. Congress can't do the jobs it has already been tasked with, and we want to give it more?" Mr. Madison grumbled at that question as I was placing a basket of this week's freshly baked bread on the table in front of them. "Congress has no more money with which to do anything under the current system. To begin with, we must empower them to collect taxes. Only then will a national government have any chance of success." I almost knocked the breadbasket over at his comments. I carefully straightened it and backed away from the table, hoping the men at the table would not notice the surprised look on my face. As I headed back to the kitchen to retrieve baskets of bread for the other tables, I considered Mr. Madison's words. He wanted Congress to collect taxes? That didn't make sense to me. I thought the Americans had just fought a war to get rid of taxes. And what type of government was a national government? I had never heard the term before. I knew there were currently 13 state governments, mostly very powerful governments, and the federal government that they had established with the Articles of Confederation. I had heard that this convention was being called because men like Mr. Madison thought that the federal government needed fixing, but I had just heard him mention some new type of government. I would have to learn more about what he meant. I didn't have a chance to return to their table again until I brought their apple pie for dessert. Mr. Madison was speaking again. "I am writing up a list of resolutions that I would like Virginia to present right at the beginning of the convention. It could be the beginning of discussions on the changes we need to make. I have spent the entire winter researching various forms of governments and believe that we can give this country the stronger government it needs if we do not waste this opportunity." As I cleared away their dishes, I noticed mixed expressions at the table, ranging from surprise to confusion to agreement. Mr. McClurg, the only other delegate in the group I had managed to identify, responded first to Mr. Madison's comment. "Virginia cannot do this alone. We will need the support of the other states as well. I have spoken with James Wilson and Dr. Franklin about my ideas. They both seem receptive to them. Dr. Franklin believes that we can count on Pennsylvania's support. I am hoping that Governor Randolph will present the plan to the convention when we open." A third gentleman at the table, somewhat older than Mr. Madison, seemed surprised at his comment.
"But James, you have done all the work. Why would you want me to present your ideas instead of doing it yourself?"
"You are more experienced and respected in political circles than I am. I will most likely be one of the youngest delegates in attendance, and I would not want my age or lack of experience to negatively sway others. I believe they will be more likely to listen if the presentation is done by you, rather than coming from me. If the others are in agreement, you can present it as the Virginia Plan." I was glad to be moving away from them so that my interest would not be obvious to the men at the table. Clearly, Mr. Madison's Virginia Plan was something to keep an eye on.